Hundreds of families across the U.S. are desperately trying to get loved ones out of Israel, with fears the fighting will get much worse. Israel has ordered a complete siege of Gaza following this weekend's deadly attacks. Hamas launched the surprise attacks early Saturday morning. The fighting has killed at least 1,200 people on both sides. That number is expected to climb significantly. The U.S. has confirmed at least 9 of those deaths were U.S. citizens. Israel says it has claimed control of the southern part of the country. It has imposed a total blockade of Gaza. Both sides have fired new rockets today. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said its response to the unprecedented attack will change the Middle East. U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken spoke with Face the Nation moderator Margaret Brennan yesterday about the best path forward for both Israelis and Palestinians.
And there are really 2 paths before the region. There's the path of greater integration, greater stability, including, critically, making sure that Israelis and Palestinians resolve their differences. Right. Or there's the path of terror that Hamas is engaged on that has not improved the lives of a single person. On the contrary, it's destroyed lives, including Palestinian lives.
CBS News reporter Haley Ott joins us now from Tel Aviv, Israel. Haley, tell us about the situation on the ground right now in Tel Aviv.
Hello, Lilia. All day, as we've been reporting, we've been hearing military aircraft go overhead. We've heard the booms of Israel's Iron Dome system intercepting rockets. And in the south, our colleagues were spent all day in and out of shelters due to rocket attacks and mortar attacks. So the situation here in Israel is very much still one of violence and conflict. Here in Tel Aviv, the streets were empty today. People, for the most part, stayed at home, apart from some civilians who were organizing to bring food or water to army bases where reservists are turning up to report for duty, or to centers organized for the families of the missing. They are doing all that they can to help their communities at this time.
Haley, Israelis living in the south have experienced rocket and other types of attacks from Hamas and from Islamic Jihad. They know what it's like when the Iron Dome works. But this invasion was very different and involves hostages now. How are people reacting there in Israel? What are they saying?
This has caught everybody completely off guard. Obviously, they didn't have any idea that this was going to occur, and questions are being asked about how that could have been possible, that Israeli intelligence or that the Israeli army had no idea that this was about to happen and were not prepared. But also, people here are, people here are doing the best that they can to cope. They're dealing with a level of shock that nobody was ever expecting. They couldn't even conceive that something like this would happen. And we've spoken to people who are young, who are old. Everyone has said that the idea that they could be attacked in this way, that this amount of casualties could occur, has caught them completely off guard. They are sad, but they are ready to do what they need to do to defend their country. We went to an army base today where we saw reservists who were reporting for duty. They said that they were nervous. They were desperately upset about what has happened, but they wanted to do all that they could to defend their country. And they hoped, though, in the future that there could be peace. They said if this is going to be a war, they wanted it to be the last war that was fought here.
Haley, from your reporting and your understanding, what does it mean when Israel says and has ordered a complete siege of Gaza? And how does the IDF navigate the millions of Palestinian civilians that are not part of Hamas?
This is an incredibly complicated situation. Gaza is an incredibly heavily populated area. It's very small. Over 2 million people live there. Many of them are women, children. When I was in Gaza, I met many families. They're all living there. It's a community like many others. At the same time, it's governed by Hamas. The United States recognizes Hamas as a terrorist group, and they are acting out of the Gaza Strip. So it is incredibly difficult to to determine what areas are civilian, what areas are militant. People are so close together, sometimes it might be hard to control for things. The soldiers that we spoke to today said that they did everything in their power. If there was going to be an airstrike in Gaza, if there was going to be some sort of attack on an apartment building or anything where civilians might be, where it was also a military target, they would alert people, they would tell people to get out of the area. But obviously, in any sort of situation of conflict, it's incredibly complicated in a place that's so densely populated.
Of course. Haley Ott, thank you. For more on Israel and Hamas, Ambassador Richard LeBaron joins us now. He's a non-resident senior fellow at the Atlantic Council's Middle East programs. He previously served as U.S. ambassador to Kuwait and as deputy chief of mission at the U.S. Embassy in Tel Aviv. So talk to us. Thanks for joining us. And let's start off with the role that Iran plays in all of this. Iran has so far downplayed any involvement in planning the attacks, despite multiple reports that the country actually gave a green light for the attack. So how does this factor into the response from both the U.S. and from Israel?
Well, thanks for having me on your show today. But I think the situation with Iran still remains a bit unclear. I don't think it's the moment to jump to conclusions about the role of Iran. Clearly, Iran has been a supporter of Hamas. It seems to me that Hamas also has been determined to act as an independent entity. So there's a mix here, and there's a difference between organizing and carrying out this operation, which I think goes to the column of Hamas, and providing moral and some degree of material support for it from Iran. But I discount those reports that this was directed or green-lighted by Iran.
So far, the response from other Arab nations has been fairly muted. The attack, of course, comes at a time when Israel had begun normalization with several Middle Eastern countries. What happens now?
It's hard to tell. It's early days. I think some of the countries that have normalized relations with Israel will pull back to some degree. I think there will be a delay in any further negotiations with Saudi Arabia. But it's a different sort of environment now, and I think there's a possibility that the Saudis might see an opportunity to play a broader role and a more constructive role and try to work with the Egyptians, for example, to get the situation under control in Gaza. So it's a little early to tell how it's going to affect the movement towards normalization.
That's interesting. And is the process or the journey towards normalization of relations with Saudi Arabia play a role into any of this? I mean, does the timing strike you as perhaps indicating that it's related to that?
I think Hamas was certainly aware of this movement towards normalization. I don't think it was the driving force behind their attacks. I think the reports of progress in Israel-Saudi normalization are fairly recent, and this Hamas operation has clearly been planned or in the planning stages for quite some time, given its scope and sophistication.
Ambassador Richard LeBaron, thank you so much for your insights.
My pleasure. Thank you.